We know that living organisms need air, water, food, and shelter, and that they cannot live without air and water even for a short time. Try to remember the various uses of water in our day-to-day life and make a list of it. You will have certainly listed the needs of water for drinking, cleaning, cooking, and washing. There is no substitute for water on earth, and hence we say water is life. Children, do you know how much we use daily, and ideally how much water we should use? The UNO, that is, United Nations Organization, has suggested that one person per day needs 50 liters of water. This much quantity of water is not available for the large population of the world. Hence, scarcity of water has become a matter of concern all over the world. This is nothing less than a crisis. To make people aware of this crisis, 22nd March is observed every year as World Water Day. We saw that there is a huge need of water on Earth. It is fulfilled through various sources of water. 71% of our Earth is covered with water. Most of this water is in seas and oceans, which is salty, and thus it cannot be used for drinking or growing crops. So, from where do we get drinking water? We get drinking water from streams, rivers, ponds, and lakes, but it has to be purified in water treatment plants before it becomes fit for drinking. The flowing water in rivulets, streams, rivers seeps into the ground. Due to this, underground reserves of water are formed. This water is called groundwater. We obtain water from these sources by digging wells and tube wells. However, with continuous use, the level of groundwater is falling. Wells, tube wells, ponds, lakes, and rivers are all sources of water. All living things, including man, depend on these sources for survival. These sources are replenished by rainwater. Find out how much water there is in a well near a large lake or reservoir of water. What does this tell you? When we dig in places close to a river, we quickly reach water level. There, the level of groundwater is quite high. Children, let us see in which forms water is available on Earth. Water is found on the Earth in 3 states. Water in wells, lakes, rivers, and seas, as well as groundwater, is in the liquid form. In the polar regions and at the tops of high mountains, water is in the form of ice. That is, it is in the solid form. Water in air is in the form of vapor or in the gaseous form. Depending upon temperature, water changes its state. At 0 degrees Celsius, ice changes into water. That is, it changes from a solid to a liquid state. At 100 degrees Celsius, it changes into vapor. That is, it changes from a liquid into a gaseous state. Let us try to understand what is meant by evaporation of water. Take 2 dishes of the same size. Put 2 spoons of water in each dish. Place one dish in the sun and one in the shade or inside your classroom. Observe the 2 dishes after about an hour. In which dish is there less water? Why? If water spilt on the floor is not wiped away, it dries up after some time. We hang wet clothes on the line. After some hours, they become dry. Where does the spilt water and the water in the clothes disappear. You have learnt how salt is obtained from seawater in salt pans. In all these examples, water has evaporated. Water evaporates at all temperatures from 0 degrees Celsius to 100 degrees Celsius. At higher temperatures, water evaporates faster. In hot, dry regions, the soil too is dry. These areas get very little rain. When it does rain, the hot and dry weather causes water to evaporate quickly. To solve the water problem for these areas, water from other places is taken there through canals. This is known as irrigation. Evaporation of water is a serious problem. Here are some ways to reduce evaporation of water. A layer of a substance called cetyl alcohol is sprayed on the water in reservoirs in which large quantities of water are stored. Cetyl alcohol being lighter than water, a thin layer of the substance spreads on the water surface. This helps to reduce the evaporation of water. Water for irrigation is usually carried through open canals. Instead, if the water is carried through large pipes, it costs a little more, but it prevents much of the evaporation of water. To save water, some plants are grown under plastic covers. Water in the soil evaporates in the sun but condenses due to the plastic cover, and drops of water fall back onto the ground. Water is necessary for plants to grow. Plants use some of the water to prepare food. Some of the water is stored in the plant. The remaining water is released in the form of vapor. This is called transpiration. In this way, plants help to increase the quantity of water vapor in the air. Nowadays, we are facing a great problem of pollution of water. When wastewater or chemicals are released into the water flowing over the land, the water does not remain fit for drinking. Very often, waste from industries is allowed to flow into nearby sources of water without any treatment. Thus, water gets contaminated. This is called water pollution. The proportion of dissolved oxygen in such water is less. Besides, the dissolved and undissolved chemical substances in the water can also prove dangerous for living beings. The government has made strict laws for preventing the pollution of water. The law makes it compulsory to treat wastewater properly before it is released from the factory. Before wastewater from toilets and latrines is released into rivers or other bodies of flowing water, the toxic and organic substances in it are broken down. Where this is not possible, trench latrines, septic tanks, and soak pits are built to drain away the waste from toilets and latrines. You may have heard or read that the Government of India has undertaken a huge project for the purification of the water of the Ganga river. Wastewater from the settlements on the banks of the Ganga, as well as from the factories and industries in the area, is properly treated before it is let into the waters of the river. Potable water. The water that we get from the different sources may not all be fit for drinking. Besides microorganisms and floating particles, there may be several salts dissolved in the water. Our body needs some of these salts. However, if the proportion of the salts in the water exceeds a certain limit, then the salts have to be separated. Floating particles and other impurities are removed by filtering. At water treatment plants, there are filtering machines to remove the impurities and destroy the germs in the water. Chlorine is also added to the water at the plant. This process is called chlorination. The government spends a lot of money on the storage, filtration, chlorination of water and on supplying the water to our houses through pipes. That is why piped water is costly. We must take care to see that such water is not wasted. We saw that the percentage of water fit for drinking is less in comparison to the available water on earth. Even the water treatments are costly. It is our duty to make wise use of water. Let us learn how water management can be done. About 3/4 of the earth is occupied by water, but 97% of this water is in the seas. It means that only 3% of the water can be used for drinking or other purposes. According to scientists, of all the reserves of water, only 35 milliliters per 10,000 milliliters is available as drinking water. Thus, we see that water is a valuable resource. It is necessary to use it with great care. We may find a way out of this water crisis by using measures like taking care on a personal level to use water sparingly, reusing water after suitable treatment rather than wasting it, reopening old wells that have become blocked. This is called water management. Replenishing sources of water is necessary in the management of water. Many people nowadays harvest rainwater. Let us see how it is done. When rainwater is collected and used later, it is called rainwater harvesting. Water that falls on the roofs of buildings is carried down through pipes and then stored into tanks or pits in the ground. As rainwater is clean, it can be stored and used later without treatment. Besides this, water in the drains along the sides of roads is also allowed to seep into the ground. This helps to raise the level of groundwater. Thus, water reserves are replenished.